Hey there, CJ Math students. Welcome to homework 2.12, multiply and divide rational numbers. Mainly, we're working with fractions here. It's practice. Calculators are okay. Since you watched the video, go ahead and make a check mark there. It's due tomorrow. So, first thing you're always going to want to do is label the type of the problem. Now, I messed up and wrote type here. It's going to be tough for you to show your work, so I wrote type above the problem in every other problem. So, for instance, this problem is a DSN, different signs negative. So, you know you're going to have a negative in your answer. You might as well go ahead and cross off A and D, right? So maybe write this off again to the side. 1/2 times 1/2. There's nothing to cross cancel, so just multiply straight across. Gets your answer of 1/4. We already said our answer is going to be negative, so B, negative 1/4. Okay. Problem like number 3. It says, what's the type here? Well, this is an SSP, same signs positive, since they're both negative. There's nothing to cross cancel between 3 and 4 and 5 and 3, so just multiply straight across. That gives you 20 over 9. You then actually have to convert that, obviously, to a mixed number. And you can do that on your calculator if you hit the fraction button, type in 20 over 9, and then hit the second x10 button, and it tells you that it's 2 2/9. And that makes sense because 9 goes into 20 2 times, which is 18 with 2 left over. We already know it's positive, so we probably should have crossed off the negative answers. So A is our answer. And if I were you, I'd pause the video and try and do 2 and 4 right now, because they're a lot like 1 and 3. So number 5, I don't ask you a type, I just ask you to tell me if the answer is going to be positive or negative. So for instance, if I've only got 2 negatives, that means my answer is going to be positive because I have an even amount of negatives. Okay. The next thing you're going to want to do is see, is there any way that you could rewrite this problem to go ahead and make it a little bit easier, so cross cancel stuff, right? So I'd actually like to rewrite it, so let's use the commuting property. Let's put 4/3 times 3/4 next to each other. That way this stuff can cancel off. And then put 4/5 times 1/8 next to each other. Okay, so the canceling, we got a lot of canceling here. 3 can be divided by 3, so those both become 1. The 4s can cross off, and those both can become 1. We can even do some more cross canceling over here. Divide by 4, this becomes a 1, this becomes a 2, and now we're multiplying straight across, right? So really this turns into 1 times 1 times 1 times 1, which is, as we know, just 1 on top. And this turns into 1 times 1, which is 1, times 5, which is 5, but then times 2, which is 10. So it's difficult to keep track of in your head. We should already have canceled out any negative answers, so D is out of there. And so it's a positive 1/10. Notice how I'm putting both the positive and negative answer here, so to really force you to believe whether an answer is positive or negative. So if I were you, once you figure out how many negatives you have and if your answer is going to be positive or negative, cross off the opposite answer so you don't get confused. All right, the next section says find each quotient. So again, the big thing here, label the type. So our type here is a DSN, different signs negative. And then you're always going to want to flip the fraction before you cross cancel. That's the biggest thing. So it becomes 1/2 times 9 over 2. So don't cross cancel until you flip. Maybe even write that. Don't cross cancel until you flip. And I'll know if you watch the video because you'll have that written on your paper, right? So nothing to cross cancel now. And I multiply straight across, and that gives the 9 over 4. And again, you can use your calculator, or you could just use your brain. How many times does 4 go into 9? Goes in there twice with 1 left over. Hence why we get 2 and 1/4. We already said this is a DSN, so all of my positive answers are gone, meaning only negative 2 and 1/4 is left behind. B is your answer. Okay. For a problem like 9, right, we got to do some legwork here. We got to go ahead and change all these mixed numbers to improper fractions, right? You cannot just simply try to say, oh, let me flip the fraction, ignore the mixed number. No, you guys know how to do this. All right, so when I do that, I get my new fraction. First of all, my fault. I'm jumping ahead of myself. This is an SSP, same signs positive, so cancel out any negatives. See you later. But when I do that, I now have 21 over 8 divided by 13 over 4. Yuck, gross, right? But let's go ahead and flip it because we have to do that. And then when I flip it, oh man, look at that. I can actually cross cancel something, right? So 4 becomes a 1, 8 becomes a 2, and now this problem becomes a lot easier, right? I don't have to freak out and be like, oh, I don't want to multiply 21 times 4 and 8 times 13. No, 21 times 1 is 21, 2 times 13 is 26, positive 21 over 26. B is your answer, all right? Cool. If I were you, again, I'd pause and try and do 8 and 10 because they're a lot like 7 and 9, right? Where you have to change this to an improper fraction. Here you got to do flipping. And remember, always label the type, okay? So last couple of problems here. Basically, I'm giving you almost like a task card. You're going to tell me the problem and the answer, right? So actually, instead of saying problem, I actually want you to tell me type, right? And then answer you right off here. So sorry about that. So all these that say problem should probably say type above them. So that way we can actually label what we're doing, all right? So Carla borrowed $5 from each of her 4 friends, right? How much money does Carla owe her friends, right? So if she's borrowing money, that's obviously -5 from 4 friends. So if she just borrowed from 1 friend, she just owe 5. She borrowed from 2 friends, she owe 10. So this is multiplication. So -5 times 4. So what type is this? This is a DSN, different signs negative. And what's my answer? It's -$20. Please, please, please circle your answer and put your units, okay? Next, 13. Jim was deep sea diving last week. He descends 3 feet every minute. How many feet will he descend in 10 minutes? Okay, so again, descending, that's -3. He does that for 1 minute, he's just down 3 feet, right? But he does it for 10 minutes, so times 10. So that's -30. Again, put your units, feet. What type of problem was that? That was a DSN, different signs negative. All right, for number 15, the temperature fell 12 degrees over 4 hours. What was the average change in temperature per hour, right? So again, instead of expression, you put the type, right? Falling 12 degrees is negative, right? So -12. And average always tells us, hey, we're dividing, right? So -12 divided by 4. So it's falling, again, type is DSN, different signs negative. So it's falling -3 degrees per hour. Okay. And lastly, Siegfried borrowed $4 a day. Again, we're putting type instead of the expression. Until he had borrowed a total of 88. For how many days did he borrow, right? So borrowing $88, it's -88. Divide that by -4, right? Because you're borrowing that per day. So -88 divided by -4. Well, it tells us that we borrowed for 22 days, right? So imagine borrowing $4 every 22 days. You'd have $88 at the end of the day, right? So the type there was an SSP. That's it. Call me if you have a question.